us from. It could be your morning, could be your afternoon, it could be your evening. Today we're talking about what's new in CourseSites, specifically getting a sneak peek into Service Pack 10 for Blackboard Learn Release 9.1, to which we plan to upgrade next Monday overnight as we've announced in the system. Great, Adam. Good to see you. And if you want, while I'm chatting a little bit, introducing myself, you're welcome to enter into the chat area where you're joining us from. We always love to know where it is you're joining us from, whether it be your institution, your city, your state, or your country. So in our sneak peek today, just wanted to go ahead and talk about 5 major areas. Some are features and enhancements themselves, some are groups of features into certain themes. So we're going to start off first talking a little bit about what's called My Blackboard and some new navigation schemes that you'll see once we upgrade next week. And I want to mention at this point it's important that you relay some of this information to your students as well. We will be posting this webinar up in YouTube, and while it is much more instructor related, you can go ahead and no problem having them view some of this material as well. We'll next move on to the content editor and math editor enhancements, some of which you've already experienced in CourseSites, but there are just some small tweaks that you'll notice. Some of you will be excited to learn about our new item analysis tool that will be coming to help you make sure that your tests are both effective and valid, and perhaps combined with the regrading option already in CourseSites and Blackboard. It's a very powerful combination to ensure we're giving our users the best possible assessment experience. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about some smaller enhancements that you should look out for you and your students, and then giving you even a further glimpse into what's coming up into CourseSites in the coming months, including through early next year. So I think you'll be very happy to see what's coming. What I'd like to do is get a sense of who might be joining us. So if I know that most of you are coming as a result of having an account on CourseSites, and if I look up through our chat, we have a couple of folks from around the world, which is great. We have Brighton, we have Boston, Southern California, Texas, Connecticut, and Oregon. Wow, excellent. I do want to extend my thoughts to everybody on the East Coast. Myself and Sarah are in Washington, D.C., so we just experienced Sandy, luckily spared a bit more than those who are a little bit further north than us. So I hope that all of your loved ones have fared well there. And Edgar, thanks for joining us from Mexico. And from Macedonia. Filipova, thank you so much for joining us. So let's go ahead and begin and see what's new. So as you first enter the system, you're going to be experiencing something that we will be calling now My Blackboard and Global Navigation. Okay, so this is just a quick sketch to see if we actually will take a screenshot of what you'll be seeing when you log into the system for the first time come Tuesday morning. All users, including you and your students, will see what we call this login overlay. And here it's just a notification about this new feature. So you'll see up here on the top right corner a new navigation feature. Those of you who use systems like Google or perhaps other web services like LinkedIn or Facebook take this kind of approach and go ahead and collect some navigation and settings options into this area with your name on it. So this is customized per user. And then you'll also see another item here, a number next to the person's name. And this is what's pulling together a lot of the information that's happening as we use Blackboard and CourseSites for the user into one place. And that's what we will refer to as My Blackboard. Okay, so the global navigation is really going to be the menu we access, and then My Blackboard will be the tools available through the new global navigation menu. As we take a look, when we close out that notification, so it's simply just a, hey, look what's new, pointing all users to the global navigation, we then get to see what that menu has to offer to us as we expand the menu. One thing I want to point out, which you may have noticed already, and this is screenshots from one of our staging environments, so I'm not in our live environment today just because our team is still working fast and furiously to get everything ready for you. But one thing I want you to take note is that the branding is going to be a little bit different. You're still going to be in CourseSites, but the green brand is going away. We're going with a more muted theme. just to give you less of a shock on the eye per se, as we've gotten feedback from different users along this regard. But also what's gone is that black ribbon here at the top, right? Where you normally would have accessed sometimes help, sometimes creating courses, particularly from an instructor standpoint, and also where you would log out. So this global navigation takes place of that ribbon and collects up those items into this new menu. The logout button is still there on the top right corner, and that's also always available. So that's what we call global navigation. This menu is going to be available for you and your students no matter what course they're in, no matter where they are in the system. Okay, and if we take a look at a couple of the elements here in the global nav, they have a collection of the courses in which they've recently visited. And this can also be set by you and the students in your personal information area. I just have a screenshot from a student perspective here. But if I entered that area, I can determine how long these links actually appear, or since how many days I've visited the course should these links appear. Then please, very important to note that the CourseSites support has been collected into this area, both within its own area as well as the question mark. So we're trying to make it available as readily as possible, again, for you and your students. And then some general settings, and this is where you'll be able to adjust some system settings such as your further visual settings available on the platform, and also give you access to your notification settings. So that's something we would normally access through our What's New or To-Do modules, but now that link is available here as well. That's an important component of collecting the information that we want to have access to. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and explain what these icons mean individually, but what we have access to as both students and instructors, these are the links and the buttons that are going to lead to the My Blackboard experience. Okay, and just to give you a bit of a transition and understanding, you may have been used to and have used the What's New and To-Do modules both on the main My CourseSites tab as well as within your courses. And these typically collect up what's going on in the course since I've come into the system last, or if I'm assigning due dates on my assignments and tests, what's happening for the students to have a dynamic to-do list. So part of what we've done, particularly from a service pack standpoint, is to go ahead and create a modern interface for both you and the students, and what we're referring to as My Blackboard. Okay, so that's a little bit about the what, and the how is what it consolidates all of the critical information. We heard a lot of feedback from our users here on CourseSites, from all the market research we've been doing at Blackboard, that we really want to move towards a more learner-centric approach where things are hidden in courses. Students might be taking multiple courses on CourseSites. It could be they take one period with you as an instructor and then perhaps move on to another one that you've told about CourseSites. So that as a student, I want access to multiple discussion posts. I want access to multiple grades without really having to peek into those separate course areas. So we're starting to bubble these up into an environment, again, that we're calling My Blackboard, and an interface that we'll see shortly. And we're hoping that this really leads to a more active learning approach and also more efficiency, both for you and your students. So let's go ahead and take a look at what those areas are. Okay, so when I have clicked on the Posts area, which is our very first button that we saw on the global nav, I'm led to a page that we call Posts. Okay, again, here, one of the complaints that we heard from students and faculty and instructors and teachers is that jumping in and out of the different courses, having to see various discussion boards and wikis and blogs and journals. Okay, so what we see here is a collection of all of the posts of this particular student, okay, no matter whether it be a discussion board, a blog, a journal. Okay, I can see them all. I can see just the ones that I'm participating in, so that I can filter this view for myself. And then I can create some custom filters. When I select a particular post, I get to see the full view, okay, and I had to cut it off, so there's even more functionality down here at the bottom, where on certain items, like blog posts, I would be able to comment right then and there without having to necessarily go into the course and go and comment and find that blog post. So this is really bringing the information to the students' fingertips and allowing them to really take the time right when they see the post to react, rather than have to find where to go to do it. Okay, if it is a discussion board, they would need to follow that into the course itself. We're taking small steps as we build out this functionality, and soon we'll be able to accommodate the in my Blackboard response experience, just like with the blogs and journals. So they can also see the other comments from the participants as well if they were using blogs and journals for some of our activities. Okay, I see some questions coming in, so I'll go through some of these features first, and then I'll make sure I address before we get to the next section. So hang in there as I continue through these areas. Okay, the next area available are updates. Okay, and this is similar to what I was describing earlier about the to-do and what's new modules that you might be familiar with, as well as the alerts and the needs attention modules that you use as teachers. So here, basically from a student perspective, I'm seeing what's going on in my course all in one area, and also with these notifications about what's happening in those areas. Okay, so in particular in the courses area, I see that I have a series of courses in which I'm enrolled, and I'm now looking at all of the different items that are happening in my courses. So again, a nice collection and a nice usable view of what's happening. Rather than just a small module, I get to see specifically that there's an assignment available for me, and if I click this link, it takes me to that particular assignment just to review the instructions and complete that assignment. I can see that there's perhaps a new content item that's available. Okay, or there's a new system announcement. Sometimes that we do on CourseSites, like with the pending upgrade, these will now show up in a nice area for the students. And they might not have to clutter up the My CourseSites tab anymore, as long as we get users to come into this particular area. Okay. Again, all of these are navigable into the particular items that lead to that particular assignment, that content item, that discussion in the course. Okay, there's also some filters here that I don't have in the screenshot that they can go ahead and click on each of the courses to see what's specific to those courses, or again, filter out just to see institution announcements like this one that we see here, or like with CourseSites with pending upgrades. Okay, and that number is typically what we would see here that we saw on the previous screenshot. So even before I get to this page, the students know when they log in how many updates they have. And these are all dictated by the notification settings. Okay, and that's also available, if I jump back, just for those who might have joined a little late, I can set my notification settings now pretty easily about what I want to see, what I want to be notified about within the My Blackboard interface in the settings area of the new Global Nav menu. Okay, and almost as important, if not most important, is the grades area. So the grades area, again, from a student perspective, we're telling us, hey, I need to jump into all of my courses to see what's happening from a grade perspective, no less from an interactive and collaboration and completion perspective, but I want to see how I'm doing all in one place. Okay, and this is all provided and being able to be set by you all as well as instructors through the Grade Center. So if anything that's not available per se from a column won't show up here, but as long as you've shown and made columns available, our grading student work, they can come to a centralized My Grades area now. As we can see, there's updates that happen here about if a quiz has been released and it's scored automatically, then that will go ahead and show up here. But perhaps that quiz has a short answer question and you need to intervene and review that question. So that will then show up once it's finally graded by you. Okay, we see also that there's quizzes that may have been taken that are being scored along the way, but this is indicating that it's an in progress. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they do have the ability to go back on a practice test to complete that. So this is an indicator that this is still in progress and they might need to go back to complete that test. Okay, if I click on a particular one, and here is just a survey with a check mark, you can see that the grade is a check mark. I can go to that particular attempt. So really giving the links to the students so that they might need to navigate their own experience and their own to-do list along with the results. Okay, so each of these will go ahead and be able to lead to your further feedback. So on this particular astronomy assignment, I could then see what my feedback was. So really trying to bring forth a best practice in instruction is giving students access to feedback, but also a nice history of that feedback and how it comes together from a whole course progress standpoint. And you can see that I have all of my courses happening here by date, but I have a course. I can filter this view, what's known by course, and then I would have a further detailed view here in the right side panel to be able to look at for, let's say, for specifically this introductory astronomy class or a biology class or whatever I might be taking on CourseSites. Okay, so let me step back and see. I saw again a couple questions come in through the chat. Welcome everyone who have joined us since we've begun. Okay, so I see a couple of affirmations of our theme. And Paula, you have a question. Does any of this require licensing on our own campus for our own instance of BBLearn? So as a reminder, CourseSites is a completely separate instance of Blackboard Learn and some other Blackboard technologies. It does not require any licensing or any agreement between you and Blackboard to utilize CourseSites at all, particularly to explore this new functionality if your campus is planning an upgrade to SP10 as well. I will make a small caveat here that there are features that will be available in Service Pack 10 that we're not yet turning on, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So you won't be able to experience them per se on CourseSites just yet, but nothing is required of you or of your institution to utilize CourseSites and be able to experience these once we move up in our planned upgrade of next week. Okay, so Adam, great to see post-aggregation makes activity more easy. Excellent, thanks so much for that feedback. So Rhonda, is there any notification that you have messages? Still is messages are something that have not yet been incorporated into this as we begin to take steps into the aggregation area. My transparent understanding is that it's a separate subsystem in Blackboard, so it takes a little while to incorporate those into the notification mechanism, as I'll call it, and now the My Blackboard. So I know we're taking steps to move in that direction, and part of what will become available early next year, I'll give you some insight, is a different messaging type tool. So it'll allow people to connect with others outside of the class experience. So it could be an alternative to what's inside the courses. But very good question. So Dendra, I believe you said is 50 still the maximum participation. I believe you might be talking about the CourseSites Live feature, which is powered by the Blackboard Collaborate web conferencing like we're using today. So at present, yes, there is still a limit to the 50 folks participating, and that would be the first 50 to join that CourseSites Live classroom that's launched from within your CourseSites. If I'm not understanding your question correctly, please feel free to repost. Okay, thanks Sarah for putting that in there. Barbara, thanks for your question as well. How much of the CourseSites capabilities will be available in Blackboard Engage? As of yet, the Blackboard Learn and the Blackboard Engage platforms are pretty separate. I know that Engage has some learning capabilities. We are exploring the K-12 space in particular as part of our roadmap for next year. So it could be that we more go the other route and bring some Engage type functionality into CourseSites as we begin to explore that. No promises there, but happy to hear about what it is that you like in Engage or what you like in CourseSites and how we might better facilitate the technology for you. So please feel free to give us that feedback. And you'll definitely have our contact information after today. So anything that you don't feel we might have addressed correctly or as much as you would think or would like today, please feel free to let Sarah and I know. Okay, moving on a bit to the content editor and the math editor. By a show of a green check or a red X, how many of us have utilized the math editor either in our own Blackboard instances or in CourseSites? And the red X and the green check can be used, is found in the participant panel above all of our names. Okay, so we're about even so far. So how many of us have used the math editor either in our own Blackboard instances or in CourseSites? I think most of us would have answered yes if I said content editor, and that's what's known previously as the visual text box editor, or VTBE as you might have seen it being referred to. So we're giving it somewhat of a new name called the content editor. All right, so we're about 7 yeses in terms of the math editor, 11 no, so a bit even a little bit more on the no side from the math standpoint. Okay, I just wanted to get a sense of where we stood there. As we talk a little bit about the content editor and the math editor, luckily on CourseSites we've been able to release the new content editor a bit earlier than has been made available to the general Blackboard Learn client base, and that's kind of part of the reason of CourseSites is to put some features out there as well and get some feedback. So it went into limited field trial, and then we were able to put it on CourseSites. So you've been exposed to that to date, but I wanted to point out a couple of areas that will change, just very slightly, both for you and the students, when you look at the text editor after the pending upgrade next week. Okay, you can see that it's pretty much looks as if it has since we've updated it to the new content editor later this summer. But the third row in particular is what's been reorganized a bit. So your file attachment areas have been really placed here at the left-hand side, since we tend to read the screen from left to right, along with our mashups of how we bring in YouTube, Flickr, and SlideShare content, as well as our Google document integration. Right? And then you can see some of the other paragraph functionality and formatting, and then your table functionality. I hope that you've found the table functionality so far to be a lot more user-friendly than in the previous versions. I know I have in building some of our courses as of date. And then we have more visible HTML and CSS access. So before we had to kind of distinguish which icons to look at, okay, to know where to go. In any case, when you see the editor for your first time, you might want to use the information link, and that gives you a nice key to see what all of these buttons mean. So for instance, you might not know that this means bold, this means italic. It's not the typical word icons that we might be used to or others that we've seen. But just to get a sense and familiarity, go ahead and use that information link. And I would recommend that you suggest that for the students as well who are responding in your courses, because they're going to see this new text editor as well in the discussion board, in their blogs, in their journals, in their assignment returns and tests that require short answer or essay questions. So it's a pretty widely used tool throughout the system. Okay, along with that, you might have experienced this already, but I wanted to point out that a part of the new feature of the text editor is really to be able to expand. I know I always feel a little constrained when it's just in that little box. So the box, you can go ahead and pull it to be able to be big, or if you just use the full window editing mode, I am able to go ahead and expand that view so I have much more real estate to work with when I'm developing the content in my course. And as you're pulling in images and such and video, there's an alignment tool that you should be aware of too. I should have taken a screenshot, I apologize not. But once I click on my attached picture view, you'll get a pop-up, and then I recommend you go to the second tab of that pop-up, and that will let you align your pictures like this, so we don't have to know HTML code or create tables really to get the pictures to align nicely with our text. So it's doing some nice HTML coding for us in the background. Okay, so make sure you try that out when you get a chance. And then a new look at the updated math editor. Again, here we might have experienced this already in CourseSites. Just a reminder that as we went up to the latest content editor a few months back, you've had access to this, but it's also been further enhanced, further streamlined, a lot less reliance on what we know as Java applets, and much more reliance on more browser-based technologies to make the process a bit easier for you, and as well for the creation of the formulas and the reuse of the formulas a lot easier than it's been in the past. And part of the support for the math editor is also, if those of you are familiar with MathML, which is sort of like HTML for displaying math equations online, the math editor supports both the saving, the copying, and pasting of equations using MathML, which is the web standard for math formula creation. Okay, so just a small update there in terms of the math editor. I'm going to go ahead and check back to see what kinds of questions have come in before we proceed to the next session. Welcome again for those who may have just joined us. And as a reminder too, who may have just joined us, we are recording the session and we'll post it up to YouTube in our channel and distribute this along with other trainings in our upcoming newsletter. Okay, so I see that we had just a couple comments based on the last section, so we'll capture those. Tina, are you going to have a student navigation handout available to us to provide to our students? We were working on some What's New documentation, which I believe we will be able to have out to you, particularly from a student perspective, just to make sure they're aware of some of these changes. So absolutely, appreciate that reminder to make sure we mention that. So Jonathan, you're talking, we're using 9. Perhaps that's Service Pack 6. Yeah, when moving performatted text from Microsoft Word to Blackboard, has the ability to make the important improved. Good reminder, and actually that's something I didn't mention because since we've had the editor for a while, it's something that as we updated to this new content editor, there's no more need to have, there used to be also a building block here in our mashup of a paste from Word tool, or as we went from Microsoft Word into the previous editor, there was a lot of perhaps tailoring that we needed to do because of some of the background code coming over from Microsoft Word. So as I've experienced with the new editor, and as hopefully you will, as you utilize this new text editor and copy and paste from Microsoft Word, it goes ahead and strips out all of the, we say messy code per se, that would be more relevant to offline documents, and then it goes ahead and make sure it utilizes the HTML. So it's almost an instant HTML validator as you're copying and pasting content in there. So it should retain the formatting, but it should strip out all of the code for you that sometimes gets in the way if you want to make changes to that formatting. There are still ways to clear formatting in this text editor. So if you wanted to get rid of certain ones, this eraser icon here, if you highlight certain areas and erase, that will clear formatting such as bolding, bulleting, italics, and such if you want to start from scratch. But you should see a more improved experience when it comes to bringing material over from Word. Thanks a lot for reminding me to address that question. And yes, has font size and type been expanded? Absolutely, Pat. So you have a good number more, not as much as you would see in Word, but a good number of font options there as well as part of this experience, and some different numbering options. And you still do have the ability to have paragraph formatting, so applying header tags and such. And Deidre, okay, great, excellent. I'm glad to see that this is going to be something that will be useful for you. Appreciate that comment. And next we're going to move on then to, as I see the questions slowing down a little bit, is to something that I hope most, if not all of you, should be excited about. What I should ask, and just to make sure, let me clear the responses here. How many of us have actually ever released a test, again, either in your Blackboard instance or in CourseSites? How many of you have released a quiz or a test of some kind? Okay, here we're seeing a lot more yeses, which I figured. Okay, and I won't ask us to have a show of hands in this regard, but I know I've done this in what courses I've taught and tests that I've designed, but there are times possibly that we've created a test where perhaps a question didn't really address the assessment need that we particularly wanted in it. And sometimes it was hard. A lot of times our students were telling us that a question wasn't necessarily as valid, or they didn't feel it really addressed what they learned or what they were being taught. So now we have a tool that really helps us to ensure that our questions are really effective and valid and really are addressing the objectives and outcomes that we need. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clear this. So we have a new item analysis tool that will be available once we upgrade. Okay, on CourseSites, and for those of you who are on campuses utilizing Blackboard Learn, it'll be something that as your campus upgrades to Service Pack 10 would be automatically available as well. So this is available per quiz, and we're seeing here a screenshot of what a item analysis sort of report would look like on this particular quiz, fitness quiz as it's being addressed. Okay, so you can see a test summary of the information here. You can also see an overall discrimination and difficulty based on, again, the students' responses that are coming in, And in the past, I know some of us may have done this. We might have downloaded our spreadsheets. We might have manually coordinated the information and created reports for ourselves to see, what exactly was going on in our tests. But now we really have an easy way to measure a question's effectiveness and validity. Okay, we do have a lot of filtering types to be all different questions by type, okay, or by category. We have the different discriminations to go ahead and select along with different difficulties. Okay, and then just a reset button here if we want to go back to the beginning. So a very nice way to go ahead and see, again, what's happening in our test, but also I'm not sure if you've missed or have not seen that we have a regrading feature available in CourseSites as well, and this is also part of Blackboard Learn. I believe it came in Service Pack 8. So here, if let's say we're looking at this report and we see that based on our analysis here in CourseSites, you could agree or disagree that there's one poor question. Okay. If I went, then I could edit that particular test, and I could decide from a regrading standpoint just to discount that entire question. I could, perhaps it was the answer, something was incorrect with the answer, and Blackboard and our CourseSites will then go ahead and regrade the test for all of our students, no matter whether they were 25, 50, or 100 or more. And that saves us a lot of time, which I know some of us in the past have gone through and had to regrade test after test after test. Okay, so great. Jane, I'm glad to see that that's something that is going to be useful for you. Hopefully everyone else might agree. Any other questions currently on item analysis? Great. Okay, so now I've just sort of bucketed up a little bit, a couple of other smaller options, one related to tests, and other user experience enhancements. So particularly for you as educators, I know that I've had this experience before where I've released a fill-in-the-blank question, and then I've had to put in all of the different options to make sure that the student's responses matched that. Okay, so that in the past, for instance, if I said, who was the first president of the USA, just in the spirit of the election and presidents, I would have had to enter George Washington. If I would have accepted G. Washington, President George Washington. So it really depended on all of these ones that I would have to that I would want to accept, but I'd have to think of all of the different iterations that the students might put in. So now we've given you something called pattern match. I've just put a brief explanation up here. It is great help text that will be available inside the fill-in-the-blank question if you are utilizing this question type. Okay, but just a couple of reminders here that when we're putting in answers, we can go ahead and utilize dots, which matches any single character, okay, except new line characters. We can use brackets to go ahead and incorporate anything in between. So for instance, if I'm using a test, let's say for the dot perspective, where I want students to just match anything that starts with B and ends in T. Okay, if we have a utilization of letter standpoint, I can use B.T and then it accepts anything within that. Same thing for the brackets, very similar, where I can go ahead and match perhaps any uppercase or lowercase letter within that particular string. Okay, and you can see then we have a dash inside the brackets, allows you to define a specific range. For example, if we're looking for particular numbers, maybe it's a date range or something like that, and or question marks. Okay, which make it, as you can see in this example, perhaps December would go ahead and match. If we're going to be accepting abbreviations in our responses, would be able to match December and be correct. There's also then, if I'm not too sure exactly, as we get used to this feature, we're trying it out, there's ways to check your pattern. So if we're entering in a particular pattern match, we can go ahead and check that just to make sure in the next screen you'd be able to type in an answer and make sure that what we're accepting or what we're wanting to accept would be accepted and marked as correct or incorrect, depending on our parameters. Okay, so Pat, I see your question about the ABC. How many? Can you tell how many answers, like how many A, B, C's are true, false? I believe that was pertaining to the item analysis. I'd have to dig deeper into that report itself. I know you can get access to that from the overall test attempt statistics. I'll have to make a little note about whether or not, to remind myself of whether or not those statistics are also then available from within the item analysis report as well. And let me know if I'm not understanding your question correctly. Jill, and you said, how do you get to it? So your item analysis, if that's what you're referring to as well. Sorry to be backing up here on some questions, but just seeing those coming in. If you're referring to item analysis, Jill, that would be available through the Grade Center, through the menu item, or through the menu available on that particular assessment item. Okay, and another small just visual user interface change is as you are uploading information into the course and particularly utilizing your content collection. So as you might know, each course comprises a content collection, as we see here, based on information that we've been uploading either through the content areas or we might have uploaded here first and published out to content areas. So as you're creating your different items, your assignments, and you go ahead and select Browse Content Collection, you're just going to be provided with a new updated menu which we hope is a bit more streamlined and allows you to either browse or go ahead and upload. In the browse, you'll be taken to the regular folder structure where you can select one or more items to be able to link for student view into the course, or your upload again offers you your single versus multiple file upload, just trying to separate it out a little bit more and give you a more streamlined approach, in particular allowing you to see a drawer here, as we call it, of all the items that you've selected. And once you submit, you'll be taken back through the workflow. Okay, so far to date, students are not provided with any access to content collection, so they won't see this particular Browse Content Collection button. So it's really only going to be for you, the instructors, to date. But just a small change that I wanted to make you aware of. Okay, so that really concludes what is going to be coming again in our pending upgrade for Monday evening. We'll begin at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, conclude by 4 a.m. Tuesday morning. And hopefully it will be earlier, but we usually give ourselves about 5 to 6 hours to upgrade. So I just want to give you that. It's Monday, November 12th overnight to Tuesday, November 13th. Okay, so all these features will then be available for you and your students beginning on the 13th. But I did want to give you an even further glance into what else is coming either later this year or early next. And we're going to weigh, based on where we are at with the semester, particularly from the North America standpoint and the terms here from the K-12 perspective, knowing that December is quite a bit of a busy time, so we probably won't do any upgrade that requires further downtime, but as well as any disruption into the workflow of the term. But we do also want to make sure we're providing you with the latest information and the latest technology from Blackboard. So let's take a look at a couple of the features that we'll start to see appearing in CourseSites as well as Blackboard Learn. And this is going to be dependent for those clients that are licensing Blackboard Learn on your school's choice of when to turn these on. Okay, so first, it's a very exciting feature that I'm excited about, which I hope that you are, is a new calendar. Okay, and this is going to be something that is really going to mimic a lot of the online calendars that we've begun to get used to. Perhaps such, some of us may be using Google Calendars. In particular, I know a lot of teachers utilize that, as well as some of their own in Outlook or other tools like iCalendar to be able to manage information, because honestly they didn't necessarily like the one in CourseSites or the one driven by Blackboard Learn. So here we have a new calendar that we'll see that could be available. You'll see it will eventually become part of the My Blackboard experience. Okay, but in particular this calendar will be something that's viewable from within courses as well, with the ability to go ahead and easily filter out by course, what students are seeing in the course. It will filter out itself. We can go ahead and have the different views to be able to be seen and easily get to. the different ways to navigate around the calendar itself. But it's a very modern drag and drop type of interface, somewhat that we're used to if we're using Google Calendar again or iCalendar itself. And even more importantly, we can begin to subscribe to the other calendars. So if I want to incorporate in my own calendar a Google Calendar or iCalendar, I can do so, or vice versa. Okay, so we'll definitely give you some more advance notice about when this will be released on CourseSites, along with some of the other ways and more in-depth information on how to utilize. But just wanted to give you a little bit of a preview there. And part of what's coming as well early next year will be something that we are moving towards in Blackboard, and really and trying to define more of a social learning realm within Blackboard Learn and CourseSites. So we just have a couple of items here that you'll start to see the My Blackboard menu grow, as you might have seen in previous snapshots. And here we have a couple of other features that once we turn on what we call the social learning features, a new cloud sort of experience will be available for users. And this is going to give you all the ability to have a different type of profile, then easily begin to interact and link with other folks who are using CourseSites in particular, or as your institution upgrades to Service Pack 10, be able to link with other people, even create your own spaces to create some ad hoc community initiatives or ways of forming groups of people who might be interested in certain topics. So offshoots of those that we might have seen in our open courses, or you might have interacted with somebody in our instructor community, you can go ahead and create your own space. And here's that messages item that I talked about earlier. So being able to have the ability to message other folks that you're connected with. And I won't compare us directly with Facebook, because we're not going to try to compete with Facebook per se in that space, but we've really listened to a lot of what students and educators are looking for from a social perspective in the education space, knowing that typically they want their Facebook and LinkedIn and other things to reside separately, but they do want similar type of functionality. So as we'll see, this will most likely be revealed early in 2013, particularly on CourseSites, as well as with Blackboard, and we'll give you again more information as we get closer to that. Okay, and then lastly, just to take a further glimpse, we have the course notification. So this is a quick screenshot of the notification settings. I've taken one here from a general Blackboard instance. On CourseSites, we have the ability to have a dashboard and email. We don't have the mobile activated to date, but what we will be able to go ahead and support you with is soon in early 2013 would really have you and the students receive notifications by text to your cell or your mobile devices, as well as text to voice, in case we might have some different usability cases going on. All right. So this is something that we have worked with internally to be able to release and support, knowing that a lot of students are able to really communicating much more with smart devices. So we wanted to be able to enable this for you on CourseSites. That's something that's coming in early 2013. Okay, for those of us with Blackboard Learn on our campuses, this is something that, again, your administrators would need to decide to turn on, and it requires just a separate installation of what we call a building block and some configuration, but it does come at no cost to the institution. Okay, I'm going to, before we do our wrap up here, I saw a couple of questions come in, and make sure we address those. And then happy to hang on for further questions. As we see, okay, so Rhonda, is social learning part of the community system or an extra license? Some of the features that you did see would require the community engagement platform. Right now, with a course delivery system, let's say by itself, if you're familiar with that module and terminology, we wouldn't necessarily have what you saw there, the ability to have spaces, I believe, and the messaging feature. There still would be the ability for you to have a cloud profile, to be able to have more of a profile card experience, let's say in the discussion board, blogs, and journals, and wiki, which will be releasing ourselves in early January on CourseSites, but it's the spaces and the messages and the connections with other people from the broader Blackboard community itself that would not come with a course delivery alone, but would require community engagement. Okay, Adam, good clarification there. That is something that currently would be US only to start. We're working with different carriers around the world to try to see what we can do to accommodate that. So good question. I appreciate that clarification. Okay, so I'm happy to hang on. If there are further questions, I really greatly appreciate your time today. I hope this gives you a good glimpse and a sneak preview into what's coming early next week. Again, we have somewhat of a new navigation menu available to us, along with some great interfaces that roll up a lot of the course information for us as educators and our students. We have some enhancements to the way we can build courses, and the students can interact with the editor along with the math editor. So I'm not sure if any of you who've used the math editor have had students do so, but this hopefully will improve that experience for them as well, almost like calling them to the board to create some formulas. I know I've seen that in the past. We have some great new analysis tools, hopefully giving you insight into how your exams are being received by the students and how they're effectively measuring our outcomes. Okay, and then we've seen a couple of different enhancements related to the tests, particularly the fill-in-the-blank option. Okay, and then looking ahead to some of the other features that are coming. So we will surely keep updating our instructor quick guides for you on CourseSites. Those of you who are familiar, a lot of this information is available too if you have access to behind the Blackboard, but also to help.blackboard.com, which they usually keep up with the latest version. Appreciate all of your help, and at any point you can always contact support. Just remember that that support link now is embedded in the global navigation menu. It didn't disappear, so support is still available for you. Just go ahead and remind yourself and the students to open that global nav menu to be able to access support. Okay. Appreciate some of the thanks. Thank you all as well. Good question, so let me address some of the ones that have just come in. Appreciate the comments on the look and feel. Validate some of the work that we've all been doing. So Dendra, you have your question, is there anything we've seen today that is only for the licensed as opposed to the open course sites? Again, as we're driven by Blackboard Learn, most of what I've shown here today, with the exception of the preview of the SMS notifications, that just requires a separate building block, would be available mainly with your Blackboard Learn for course delivery as it's known, or if you have the Blackboard Learn for academic collaboration or Blackboard Learn for community engagement platform, that would also then include some of the features I've mentioned in terms of the look ahead. But everything else, if your campus were to upgrade to Service Pack 10, would come with all of these new and enhanced features. Sometimes our administrators, or depending on if there are different committees that work on which features to release, again, it varies per campus, but they do come with the default install of Blackboard Learn Service Pack 10. Let me know if I've addressed your question there correctly. Yeah, just as a different addendum there, available still at CourseSites, to be used at no cost. Will these enhancements be available in new courses, or will they be available in existing? Good question there. So the system, when it updates, it will still respect your tool settings in your courses, but you would be able to see, let's say, the item analysis in your previous courses. So that would be something that, that's a good question that I would need to remind myself on, just to be sure I'm telling you the truth, because I want to make, that would mean that the database would have to do a bunch of connections, but I'm just going to check on that, Irma, and then be able to get back to you in particular if it's the item analysis that you're looking for, which I could imagine would be a good sort of reverse tool as we're looking at previous courses. Okay, and then Bruce, you mentioned, can we get a survey tool that allows the students to rank topics? If I'm understanding correctly, I'm wondering if you're talking about perhaps in the discussion board allowing them to rank particular responses, or is it something where the current survey tool itself is not allowing you to create a way for students to be able to correctly rank topics? If not, let me know and we can see if we can work with you separately. Oh, okay. Sorry, I did mention that we would do that. Let me write our contact information. Oh, Sarah did that for us. Didn't scroll down far enough. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate the help there. Okay, Bruce, maybe we can spend some time talking through that, as I always love to collect information about wishes and future features, or perhaps see if there's a way to utilize what's currently there. So I think Sarah put our email in there. If you want to go ahead and contact either of us, we'd be happy to work with you to see what we can either collect from you in terms of what you'd like, or see what we might be able to work out what's there. And as a reminder, again, thanks everyone for your participation and all of your questions and insight. But as a reminder too, as you're currently working in your own Blackboard instances and you want to go ahead and experience what your course might be like in Service Pack 10, you're welcome to import those courses into CourseSites. You can go from system to system. Always you can go up to a new version. The only difficulty would be if you wanted to go backwards. So for instance, if you uploaded your course into our environment in Service Pack 10, then you wanted to go back into even a Service Pack 8 or something, it probably would go through, but you might see a couple of errors through that import process. As a reminder too, you can import your CE Vista and your Angel courses into CourseSites. There are some differences the way they come in, but you are able to import those as well into CourseSites if you're trying CourseSites out as an upgrade environment. Wonder Filipova, thank you so much for that. I do myself have to jump onto another webinar. I appreciate all of your time today, and thank you to Sarah for letting me keep my training wheels honed as she lets me run some of these webinars now and then to keep my skills up. So hopefully you all had a good experience today. I'm going to leave you with Sarah for the next 10 minutes or so in case you have further questions that she can address or perhaps collect for later response. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and have a wonderful rest of the year as well. And I look forward to seeing you all online.
Hi everyone, this is Sarah. If you're still here and have questions, feel free to ask me. I'm also going to turn on your microphones in case there's only a couple people left. If it's easier for you to speak, go for it. Yes, we recorded this and it'll go into YouTube on our CourseSites YouTube channel. Thank you so much. We should have it up later today.